Do you have any comments on the minutes?
Comments?
Motion to accept?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Financial report. So starting balance in the Chase account was 403, with, after some payments, including $7,570, which was for the closing fees on 7 South Cartwright. We have, and some other expenses, payroll, we have a balance of $397,534. And in the class account, we have $6,856,452, plus a very nice interest deposit of $24,399, plus a county transfer deposit of $147,418, giving us a total for the two different accounts of $7,425,804, and a total year-to-date revenue of $363,637, which is, I believe, lagging. That is what it is. Anybody have any other questions on the finances?
Go through it so fast.
Well, hopefully you've read it before. I will say we are spending some money. We had to do some, well, we did the clearing of invasives, partial clearing of invasives at Tuttle Creek Preserve. Took down some trees that were dangerous, and then opened up a trail so people can walk in, walk through, and then walk out. And that was done a couple of weeks ago. And then at 7 South Cartwright, we had a tree fall, or a significant portion of a tree fall. And then when Danny went to take care of that, he checked the other maple trees and decided that they all had to come down. So we had to remove 3 of those big trees, unfortunately, but they were either leaning toward the house or whatever. So, and then we also pruned, there was the cherry tree coming in, and some of the locust was hanging low over the driveway. So we cleared up that as well. And then there were a bunch of larger branches that were in the way of getting more mowing done. So that got cleaned up. In terms of, well, we have a couple things on the agenda that I don't think we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about trail expansion. We can talk about invasives. Do you want to do that, Tim? And your report with Andy?
Yeah, actually, that was not so much an invasives, but a plant survey.
Well, correct.
Yeah. But the invasives were involved, as we'll see. Yes, on May 5th, I met with weed specialists. And
Jess, you have pictures, you have slides of this? I think you do.
Yeah. Yep. So I met with, so Andy and I met at the Cedars on May 13th, and that's Andy at work. You can see the pond in the background. And we were there for a couple of hours, and so Andy put together a report, next slide, and This was sort of the written part of the report. It talks about what we saw and what was unusual. And then next slide, he put together a list of all the plants. Most of the plants in the top of the list are all native plants. Actually, it's a fairly, it's a preserve that's actually in fairly good shape in terms of native versus invasive plants, which is great. And then he put together, next slide, please, an illustration that shows where the area that was surveyed, and then photographs. He photographed most of the plants that he made remarks about. It's common names, but the list before that has common names and then species name. At the very bottom right, he has some of the non-native plants that are there. And then next slide, just show you, so this shows you cedar trees, which is why it's called the cedars. There are lots of red cedar. And then all that sort of dried grass around it is switchgrass, which there's a lot of switchgrass, which is native, which is great. Next slide. This is not blooming right now. This is Seaside Goldenrod, which was actually taken across the street a couple of years ago, but there's a lot of Seaside Goldenrod growing mostly in the beach area. And then the next slide is, I always call this the wrong thing.
Prickly pear.
Groundsel.
Prickly pear, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, prickly pear, yes, I know that. There's a lot of prickly pear, also mostly in the beach side, but also in the interior.
There's some along the road too, I think.
A lot on the road.
Yeah.
And on the other side, there's a lot of it on the other side, even more on the other side. And then this next slide, please, there's a lot of groundsel, which is a salt-tolerant shrub. Again, this is...
What's it called?
Pardon?
What's it called?
Groundsel. It's a shrub, and it grows about, can grow up to, 6 to 8 feet tall sometimes. And these are I always get confused if these are the seed heads. I think these are the seed heads, which you see in the fall all along the causeway. And the next slide, this is the most interesting discovery of all. This is a heather called Hudsonia. This is not my picture. I just wanted to show you what it looks like when it has a lot of flowers. You see a lot of it growing out of Montauk in the dunes there. And next slide just shows you what the flowers look like. Then in the next slide, this is actually a picture I took there. The flowers are quite tiny. But what was interesting about this, next slide, please. There are two mounds when you go further in on the dirt road. One mound has a lot of blue stem grass, but this mound, the second mound, which had the Hudsonia, and there's some grasses behind it. I'm wondering, we both wondered if there were shell mounds at one point. They're really unusual in that area, which is mostly flat.
Flat.
Yeah, I don't know how one figures out without digging, which we don't want to do. Anyway, this is a really nice, healthy population that's sort of held because of the mound. It's when the area gets flooded, it doesn't get flooded so far. And then the next slide, in the same area where the Hudsonia is, this is sickle leaf aster, which is a really tough little aster that blooms in August and September. So these are all the good things. And then among some of the not good things, next slide, please. This is autumn olive, which there's not a lot of it there in the cedars, but I noticed because it was all blooming a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of it now along the causeway and on the other side of the street. It's growing in when you go into the turnaround on the Manette, on the bay side. There's the town road.
Yeah.
It's a drop off circle. So along there's a lot of it growing, and probably more inside. And at some point we should really try to, I think a number of years ago when Jay Card was the highway super, he went in there and cut a lot of it down. And we should try to get rid of this.
Is this different than the Russian olive?
Yeah, it's really, I call it autumn olive. Yeah, I know, it's,
Is it different or the same?
Same
It's-
species?
pardon?
Is it the same species?
It's the same. Yeah,
Because on Artist Lane, there's a lot of it on the
yes,
Atlantic lot.
and we should try to get rid of it
Yeah,
because,
we've talked to Ken about that.
yes,
It has to be uprooted though.
Yeah,
it really spreads. The birds love the berries and
and then it spreads more.
it'll spread more. And in the South Fork, when I talked to the CPF, Scott Wilson, that's their big problem. Is the olive. Anyway, so that's it. So this was a really fun little project.
Did it look like anybody was using that road at all?
Pardon?
Did it look like anybody was using the old driveway at all? Driving their trucks down there?
Do people drive their trucks?
Yeah. Did you see any like tracks?
I didn't see any tracks. Actually, one thing that's interesting is that maybe 10 years ago, because I used to go in there a lot because I like that area, and there were a couple of plants that were growing there. One was seaside plantain, which I told Andy about, and I could not find anywhere. And what I'm finding instead is glasswort, which is grows closer to the water. And the glasswort is now growing along the road, which sort of suggests to me that there's more inundation.
Absolutely, yes.
And the plant life is changing.
Need salt water in it.
Yeah.
Salt water, yeah, because the glasswort is salt water, not compatible, tolerable, thank you. So, so it'd be interesting actually going forward to see how the vegetation keeps changing.
I was actually wondering if that would explain why the flowers on the beach heather are smaller in this area, is maybe with the periodic flooding, like it is semi-tolerant. So it's growing, but maybe that would explain the smaller flowers.
Those smaller flowers, they tend to be small anyway.
Oh,
Yeah, they're not.
that out as like
It's
a,
not these spectacular flowers. And I was just gonna mention about tulip that you came. I'll wait till he comes back.
I would just say, just my observation, just the last few years, is there was a lot more use on that road, that parallel road. And I think, again, in those last few years, there's been a lot more washover, a lot more flooding of that road, and I think leading to less use of with trucks and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, one thing about the trucks is there are some turtles going sometimes in those roads, and I don't think it's in there to think about it. And then Kate also joined us. We met with Kate, and she showed us the erosion along the shoreline. Andy did not have a lot of great ideas. We talked about sort of using more of the oyster shells,
Yeah.
which you're trying to do anyway.
Right. Yeah, and I still want to bring in some of my colleagues, my Habitat team colleagues, just to get eyes on it, get their view of whether or not it's a good site for marsh grass and upland plant restoration to help with that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it this year was the wind, because we had all that wind this winter.
It really was a doozy.
Yeah. And she showed us a lot of oysters that had washed up on the shore. So anyway, it's interesting. It's really important to do this. And ideally, we would do it with a lot of the preserves,
Right.
because then you get sort of a
Baseline.
baseline, thank you. A baseline of what's there, and then you can sort of keep track of how things change.
Right. Well, also to do the stewardship plan, eventually we have
Yes.
to get that done, but
Yes.
it needs to be accurate and consistent. with
Yes.
What's really there and what we need to do about it.
Yes, exactly. And it sort of goes in hand with Andy also coming and look at the invasives at the preserves. So we're getting sort of a double thing here of getting a baseline of all the plants, but also getting advice about how to deal with the invasive plants.
Right.
Does Andy do this as a volunteer Like, does he volunteer his time to do this?
No.
No, not going forward. He did, when he came with me the first time and we looked at the three preserves, that was sort of a volunteer thing. I think
First time's free.
we were, he wasn't quite sure how his, because he's retired, but he's still working as a consultant for Cornell. But anyway, we'll talk about that next session.
Anything else? That's good, right?
That's it.
Okay. Do we have the new maps? Are they done?
No, I just heard from Fran last week. There was just one thing he wanted to check. And actually, I haven't had time, but I'm gonna just go through it again.
Okay.
And ideally Kathleen, you can also, when we get the final sort of draft of the map, we can both look at it, just make,
That would be great. I haven't seen something in a while.
yeah, it's pretty much done, but we should just take one more look at it before.
Great, good.
All right,
That's it.
maybe by next meeting,
But before then, yeah,
and
ideally,
then you'll get them printed.
yes, and
Okay.
we're paying for that? The CPF is paying for that?
The last time, didn't it say the Chamber of Commerce on it?
Yeah, the chamber, I don't know if we've discussed who's paying for,
I don't know. Did you talk to the chamber?
I haven't talked to anybody.
Nor have I.
Will one of you follow up on that?
Yes.
Sure.
Hopefully they'll pay for it.
Do you want to do that, Kathleen?
Sure. Does anybody have a point person at the chamber?
Teresa Andrew?
I don't. Actually, I just emailed them last week at their contact and I haven't heard back.
Okay.
Try Teresa, Kathleen.
Who?
Teresa Andrew.
Okay. And maybe Gordon will know somebody too.
Art Williams is also,
Right.
Okay, great, thanks.
Boundary markers, trail signs, so we have, new signage needed for the Cedars, Tuttle, Needham, Josephson, and we still have, signage, for Artist Lane that needs to go up, and I've been working with Denise Fenchel. Apparently the plastic that these signs are made out of, it's very hard to source, so she finally sourced it, and we're trying to figure out if we can use one sheet to make 4 signs. The signs may be slightly smaller, but more efficient in terms of resources. And she also had a comment on the way they were being done before, which they're peeling, and the decal that gets inset after it gets routed out seemed to be peeling. So her intention would be to do this with an acrylic liner that the decals will stick to. I'm calling them decals. I'm sure there's another technical term for it, but so that is all in the process of happening. So, and Kathleen,
Sure.
can you clarify again? You did it at the last meeting, I think. It's Josephson Head.
Yes, there's no apostrophe S.
So, okay, so it's singular.
Yeah, I sent you all, and I can double check, but I sent it to everybody,
Okay.
the listing in Wikipedia or wherever it was.
All right. And I have a question for our town board member. Do we have to go through the whole stewardship process and get that approved, or can the name get approved, or do we approve the name?
Usually it goes through the whole process.
The whole process? Okay, all right. All right.
but we're okay for the map, right? Because it's on the map.
You know, with the name, you can start with the name
Yeah, okay,
and then go through the process.
right. Okay. Since we haven't done the stewardship for Tuttle or Cedars yet, but it's gonna, it'll be a while, so. All right.
Mhm.
With regard to 7 South Cartwright, interesting news is that on a very preliminary, prior to talking to Reed Karen about this, but we have done some assessment. Michael Shatkin and I have gone through, and Michael's done some work trying to figure out whether or not the house can be occupied and brought to code for our purposes. And if it's a B use, and I don't have a lot of technical information here because this is not my wheelhouse, but if it's a B use, it's consistent with the residential fire code. So we don't need things like sprinklers. We do need lights, exit signs, correct passages, et cetera, but it's a reasonably feasible thing to do. So that is the good news. And then we will continue discussions about what may or may not be happening in that. Anybody have any questions about that?
What is B use?
It's a code. It's it's like small assembly.
Okay.
Now, there's, isn't A residential, C commercial, B is sort of in between?
Yeah,
something
it's like
that?
office meeting space. Wait, you're a code guy. You're an electrician. You should know what these codes are. Yes,
I just talk from here.
and are you supposed to talk here and identify yourself by name?
Sure. My name is Catherine Cunningham. And I was just listening to what you were saying about the inspection of the premises by Michael Shatkin.
Actually, I should also comment that Chuck walked through with Pam
Okay,
Lucille the other day as well, so, but I haven't gotten that report.
okay. Well, the reason I'm saying anything is because a long, long time ago, we were told by Michael's wife that this place was going to be an arts center. And we asked about it prior to this time, is that on the agenda? And it looks like it's going forward to be an arts center, which I'm an artist.
Yep.
And I think that it's not the appropriate place for a real arts center. It would cater to a small amount of people, hopefully, if it did become, because it would be an abuse, I feel, of the property to have traffic there, parking there, septic facilities, when it's a bucolic area, which the preservation, as I understand, is to preserve property. And this was a deviation from the norm by buying a piece of property with a house. So now you have a house and you say, well, what am I going to do with the house? So now we have to find something to do with the house. And there have been lobbyists for this art for a year, and it's been denied that this was something in the works. But I just think it's a little coincidental that Michael, an architect, has so much input into this, that his wife wants it to be an art center, that she's already made 501c a corporation for it.
Right.
So I'm just saying this right now, that I think that we've been misled when we've asked before, but it seems like this is something that's a done deal.
Okay. It's not a done deal. We're very much in a long discussion process. There is no question that there is an interest from that group that you're talking about in having some sort of an art center there. Nobody's ever said that's not in a prospect. There's some prospects. So that's definitely something that has been talked about. However, in the meantime, Michael has agreed to help out to figure this out because that is his skill and he's not charging us. And so we have to, regardless of anything, we need to figure out if the building is usable and can be reasonably retrofit to the code. So, and again, that's conversations preliminary because we haven't met with the town building inspector, so. And there's other discussions about some interest in the property, which Mr. Pugh wants to comment on.
I'm Jim Pugh. I'm a neighbor, and Glenn Colligan is here, neighbors, 7 South Cartwright. I've owned since 1979, abutting the 7 South Cartwright property. Couple of things. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York, and I'm willing to, as a courtesy, if you give me what code has to be brought up to, I'll tell you the feasibility.
Okay,
The understanding of those of us that know the property and we do, and the house, is it needs to be taken down. That's just, anyone that was considering buying the property had the plan to raise the house and build something new there. It's, the house is very used and would require a lot of work to even make it usable as an art center. It's not impossible. It could happen. Now I'm happy to give you a review, a PE review of it. I do codes and violations, everything all over the place, city and tri-state area. Also, I've distributed to most people a copy of Robin Paul Kimmerer's The Service Berry. I just gave a copy to Kate. You want to hold it up if you could? That's the only copy I have here today. I've put together a proposed stewardship plan as a volunteer. And I can't speak for Lynn, but Lynn has indicated to me that she's very interested in volunteering to help with the, management or maintenance of the property, as I am. And this Service Berry, I'm very interested in your assessment of the wetlands and all the different grasses around, but if you haven't read the Service Berry, it's very worth a read. And I'd love it if people that have a copy could read it, pass it around, because it really has to do with the so-called reciprocal economy, with giving back to the community, which I think is what CPF is all about. That's my understanding of it. And it has to do with the fact that, or the posit that it's not what you own and keep, it's what you have and give away. And it's worth reading. There's some very pithy and thought-provoking concepts in there that are very, very well put. Thank you.
yep. And just as an additional comment regarding this property, there has been some interest from the tennis community in restoring the existing tennis court. That doesn't eliminate, because it was some discussion about putting a community garden in the tennis court area, but that doesn't preclude having another space but there's been some interest and some conversation about restoring the tennis court, it being a hard true court, which is a soft court, and not being a hard surface court. And there would be a tremendous interest from the tennis folks to use that. So, amongst other things in the discussion, including a community garden, so.
This proposed,
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
okay, sorry.
Any other comments, questions?
Just as, if anybody wants a copy of the book, I'll be happy to give them a copy. I have a supply, and I'm happy to distribute the copies of the book.
Actually, Jim, but we have another copy that I have, the two he lent me, so I can, thank you. I mean, yeah.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on, community event, which got, well, we were thinking of doing it in June and just time got away from us. So I think we're looking at the fall. Kathleen?
Yeah, no, Kathleen got sick. So yes, the
And hopefully you're feeling better.
I am feeling better. Thank you. The question is, do we do it at the end of August or the beginning of September?
I don't know.
Beginning of September, I think.
Me too. August is just too busy. So
Too
we'll do
much.
it right after the weekend, maybe after Labor Day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on that? You're assembling? Okay,
We still haven't, we have things to decide, but I
Right.
don't think we have to decide that today.
okay. New business? Anybody have anything? Old business? Under old business, I think through Denise, I've located a bench. Remember, we talked about the Banta family wanted to do a memorial bench. We talked about putting that at Josephson property, 7 South Cartwright. I think I have found one with an appropriate bronze plaque, and I'll work on getting that done. Anything else? There's some folks online. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
I do, guys. Elise, morning.
Hi, Elise.
Hi, guys. Couple things regarding Artist Lane.
Yep,
I was disappointed that all of the landscaping didn't seem to get done for Memorial Day weekend. It looks like they may have forgotten about the entrance on Simpson Road. That was not cut. And we are coming up to the Historical Society White Family exhibit on June 27th. It would be great if we had some kind of signage on Monantic so people know where that preserve is. And I know you're working on the trail signs and all of that, but just an entrance sign would be
Well,
wonderful.
yeah, no, the entrance sign is what I was talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
So
Any-
I don't think I don't think it'll be done by June 27th for sure. I mean, I don't think it'll be done by then.
Should we do a, like, temporary signs?
Could do a temporary sign. I could ask Denise about that.
That would be great. I mean, when we did our walk last August,
Yeah,
we, I had quickly painted something, just so people know where it is. I mean, we've got 130 households in that area and only a handful of people, and Howie is in the audience, will tell you too. I mean, a lot of people don't know where the entrances are. So,
okay,
yeah.
all right. Do you
I
have
know-
something?
I do have something. I would have to get it waterproofed, but I could do something. We already had it up there. So at least somebody knows where the parking entrance is. I don't think we're as concerned about the Simpson Road entrance, but the main one where the
Right.
parking is,
Okay,
So
I'll
I'll
talk
be
to,
up, I'll be up in 2 weeks. I'll be up then on the 21st. And I could maybe get that going and maybe send something to you and say, is this okay to put up temporarily?
you can email me and,
Yep.
or if you email me, I'll give you my cell phone and we can communicate. All right,
That would-
thanks, Elise.
That would be great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. I think that's Carla. Did you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Tui, and thank you for responding to my email. I appreciate that. And so perhaps this is just redundant, but Elise kind of opened the door on this. Yeah, I'm a little concerned about the parking area. It was to have been, we originally talked with the town about it being pea gravel, but that was dismissed as being too crumbly or something. And we eventually decided upon, I wrote it down here, 3/8 inch crushed stone in the color beige, and it's sometimes called beach mix. So the idea is that then the parking lot is consistent with the the driveway that comes into the parking lot, because right now the driveway coming in is is this beige beach mix, but then
Right.
it becomes a mixture of beach mix and bluestone, which is not so pretty. at the parking lot. So you guys already know this, and it sounds like Elise is also concerned about signage. And, you know,
Yep.
I'm just thinking in terms of establishing habits when people come in to begin the season. It's nice for people to know where to park, where to go, but I know you're doing the best you can on the signage. And the only other thing is that, and I'll check with my family. I was on the island last week, but you know, there had been some issue with people cutting through behind some of the other lots to get to the Simpson Road area of the preserve.
Yes.
We do have to make sure that does not continue. So,
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you, we did have the surveyor go in. And I'm trying to get him to respond to me because I wanted them to stake the property, because Elise mentioned this early on, that there was some overflow from the hunters onto her property, and we want to get, we've developed these tall, you know, maybe 4 or 5 foot high, so they're visible markers that say preserve boundary, you know, because we have there's 2 lots. One is the CPF lot and the other is still your family lot. And then I know that people have traversed along that,
yeah.
the edge of that lot, thinking that it's just open access, and we want to put signs up that are clear that it's not.
Right.
So unfortunately, I can't make the guy to respond any quicker than he has responded, and it's
Okay.
pretty slow. So I think Jessica's going to send him a strongly worded letter. We did to try to get him back on track here.
Okay.
Realizing that, by the way, we started this process in, you know, toward the end of February, and they did the survey, but they haven't done the next piece of this thing.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get that done to make sure that people stay where they're supposed to stay, and all of that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much, and thank you.
Yep. Okay. Anybody else have? Oh, Sandra, yes. Hi.
I wanted to ask all of you, or specifically Kathleen, can you describe in general, what is this community event that?
Well, basically what we want to do is we just want to expose the community to what the Community Preservation Fund actually does. And because a lot of people, I am told, don't know about it. They don't know what we do, how we do it. And I think the best way to show people is show some of the properties that have been saved. So we will pick a couple of properties. We will have TUI speak about what we do. And then perhaps Tim will take people on a tour and show them the stellar things of a property or two. That's very simple.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was something under a tent where you, where.
No. This will be outdoors in the morning with coffee and maybe donut holes, something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? I make a motion, we close the meeting. Those in favor? Aye. Right. We will move to executive.